This is the Google Nexus One, the first Google Nexus phone by HTC, codenamed HTC Passion. This Google phone included a 3.7 AMOLED Pentile matrix screen, a illuminated trackball, and a 5.0 megapixel camera, making it one of Google's iconic phone designs. Today, we're going to dive into unboxing the Nexus One and dive into the history of the Google Nexus. This is the unboxing gadget. Let's dive in and explore. Alright guys, here it is, the Google Nexus One. Honestly, this is a very exciting unboxing. It's a very special phone, so believe it or not, it took me a while to find this phone in this condition. Scavenging eBay, took me a while to find this one, with everything in the box included, and a phone pretty much brand new, so I found it, and here it is. Shout out to eBay. And another note, shout out to the eBay seller. I think he did a great job packaging this phone. I think he knew, I was really excited for this phone, so he made sure to make sure everything was packaged right. I mean, the bubble wrap and everything is pretty good, so A+ for that eBay seller who shipped this phone. Okay, so either way, it's crazy how time flies because it's been 14 years since this phone has came out. I think 2010 was that peak time when phones were innovative, they were cool, they were new, they were fresh. So 14 years ago, this phone came out, and honestly, the design still stands up to today's standards, I think. But it's such a relic of smartphones in today's world. The Nexus One, the first Google phone that kind of started it all for Android and Google. But either way, starting out with the box itself, you can clearly see Google did it right at the time. I like how simple, sweet, and to the point it is. It doesn't even show the phone on the box, just the Google logo and the Nexus branded. So there it is. Alright, so if I remember correctly, I think I recall Apple trying to sue Google for this phone. Saying they stole some of their patents, their design, their whatever. Apple, of course, trying to come after everyone since they were the main phone at the time. But clearly Google stayed around and made some more phones. So either way, as we take it out the box, man, you can clearly see the size of this thing. It's about the size of the palm of my hand. I kind of enjoy phones this small because it allows us to store phones in our pocket. It doesn't have that, huge size factor when we're carrying it around. So that's definitely a plus. Okay, so as we're taking the phone out the box, I do want to quickly talk about some of the hardware features that came with this phone. Now granted, it doesn't stack up to today's phones, of course, but for the time when it came out, it was actually pretty good. Now, the screen was that 3.7-inch AMOLED screen. Now, if I remember correctly, I believe they had supply storages with that screen, and they switched that out to the Super LCD display. Now, I'm not sure which display is on this phone, but it's either one or the other, so pretty cool that they switched that out to the Super LCD. Now, the touchscreen is that compatible touchscreen. Now granted, the touchscreens of that time are a lot different than now. They weren't quite as fluid as, the iPhone 16 now. But for the time, they were pretty good. And it came with a 5.0 megapixel autofocus camera with LED flash and digital zoom. So it had everything that you would want in a smartphone for today. Of course, the CPU and specs are a little bit outdated, but honestly, for the time, it really was pretty top tier phone. It was actually a pretty good competitor to what Apple was, putting out too. So it's just that, iOS versus Android debate, which has been that debate for years. So I feel like people really like Android or they really like iOS. So okay, so before we move on to turning the Nexus One on, let's quickly compare the Nexus One to the iPhone 4, just for size reference. So you can clearly see they're about the same size. Back in the day, these two phones stacked up against each other, so size-wise, they're about the same. And, here's my iPhone 4 and here's the Nexus One, so there it is, the size. Alright, so this is the moment you all been waiting for, turning this Nexus One on for the first time. Now, the seller did say that this was a fresh battery, never used, never opened or put inside the phone, and the phone hasn't been used either, so I'm curious to see if it turns on, and so far, it does turn on. I did charge the battery for about 3 hours. It charged up, no problems there. So far everything's working pretty good. Now, if you guys recall, the Nexus One was originally released with Android 2.1 Eclair. Here we have 2.1 Eclair. Now, the crazy thing about this interface and home screen and this Google operating system was it was pretty bare bones. I mean, it didn't come with much, pretty stripped of everything, and that's kind of how this was like the epitome of Google OS, just bare bones Android operating system, which I love. So alright, so we are in, it's on, is working. Everything's working just like it did 14 years ago, which is pretty cool. The app drawer, man, what a time. And Google's OS was always so fluid. We got the camera. Now, of course, the camera quality is not the best. It's an older phone, 14 years old. But I mean, but for the time, you can clearly see it's not bad. I mean, it's not the worst thing. Even the iPhone 4 camera wasn't the best. But I mean, for the time it was good. But now, of course, it's not the best. But you know, here we have it. We got the clock. We got contacts, email, Facebook, gallery, Gmail. Of course, I click on map. Okay, so and if we keep going, we got the marketplace, which of course isn't going to work since I'm not connected to the internet. And it was always that battle between Android marketplace and of course the App Store. And whether you like Google or Apple kind of deters you from which one you like the most. We got messaging, music, navigation. And I'm not sure why there's maps and navigation. I can't quite remember why they had both. We got phone, settings, Twitter, what a time. Of course, it's not Twitter anymore, but here's the OG Twitter. And we got voice, and then we have YouTube, the original YouTube app. Man, what a time. Good times. Okay, so we're back on the home screen, and Android OS had the best live wallpapers. I mean, you can play with them. They're interactive. There's something that was always missing from iOS was the live wallpapers. I think that was something that was really cool. Even now, they still do that with the Galaxy and Samsung phones, but having that was pretty cool. Let's actually check out some of the live papers that came included with the Nexus One. So we have the grass, the magic smoke. We got maps, polar clock, spectrum, UV meter. I think this was my favorite. This fall one. I mean, it was pretty cool because you can touch the thing in the water, and the water droplets would interact. So everything was pretty cool with this phone. Now, granted, leaving these on would drain your battery back in the day, but it was always cool having this and showing your iPhone friends, hey, I have a live wallpaper and you don't. So that was always cool to me. And of course, we have the internet, which isn't working. I'm not going to connect to the internet, but you know, this phone had everything. So here it is, guys, the Nexus One. I'm glad to finally have this in my possession. I think this is a relic of smartphones. I think it's one of the best. It really was a time when this thing came out and was competing Apple and the iPhone, and I finally got to unbox it because back then I didn't get the chance to unbox it. So thanks for watching. This was the unboxing gadget. I'll catch you next time. Peace.